You're not responsible enough to hold a real job, Camille. My mother said it in front of 7 people at the Brookline Grange. Candlelight on the white tablecloth. Her fork halfway between her plate and her mouth. The cod still steaming on its tines. My father stared at his napkin. My brother Tyler looked at me with something close to embarrassment. Aunt Brenda made a small, sympathetic noise. Uncle Carl swirled his Cabernet. I did not argue. I did not cry. I set my phone face down on the linen next to the bread plate, and I let the candle flame reflect off the case. The phone buzzed once. My mother smiled. "Aren't you going to defend yourself?" I waited. The phone buzzed a second time. I picked it up. The call was from the woman who, 10 days earlier, had pretended to fire me. My mother's fork stopped midair. If you have ever had a parent who set you up just to watch you fall, please take a second to like and subscribe, and drop your location and the time you are listening in the comments. I love seeing where in the world this story is finding you. I'm Camille, 23, and this is the story of the night my mother thought she had buried me and didn't realize her own father had buried her first. Let me take you back 10 weeks. Mid-January, 10 weeks before that restaurant, I sat on the floor of a 400-square-foot studio in Brighton with my back against an unpainted wall and an offer letter open on my laptop. Brennan and Klein, LLP, Paralegal Trusts and Estates Division, $58,000 a year, benefits, 6 weeks of training. Vivian Brennan's signature on the bottom of the page. I had moved out of my mother's house 3 days before. 2 suitcases, 1 box of legal textbooks, a coffee maker, and a Boston College sweatshirt I had owned since freshman year. The studio still smelled like the previous tenant's incense. The radiator clanked. The window faced a brick wall. It was perfect. I had wanted that job since the day I walked into the firm for my 3rd interview and saw the way Vivian Brennan ran a conference room. Quietly. The way a person walks across ice that they know how to read. She had reviewed my paralegal certificate, my legal studies BA from Boston College, and my undergraduate thesis on testamentary capacity. And at the end of the hour, she had said, "We have a place for someone careful." Careful. That word had never been used about me in my own home. In my own home, I was the one Diane called every variation of irresponsible since I could form sentences. Reckless, distractible, selfish, the one who left wet towels on the floor, the one who could not be trusted with a credit card, the one who lost things, the one who, my mother liked to tell strangers, had always been just a little too much. It had cost me a STEM scholarship at 12, when a guidance counselor returned a worried voicemail my mother had left and told me my behavioral concerns disqualified me from the program. It had cost me a Boston Globe summer internship at 17. The editor had taken my mother's call, the one where she described her daughter's fragile state, and the offer had quietly disappeared. It had cost me, by a conservative count, 2 scholarships, 1 fellowship, and 3 friendships, all dissolved through whispers I never heard delivered. But it had not cost me Brennan and Klein. The offer had come through. I had said yes. I had signed. That afternoon, Diane called, "Sweetheart." Her voice did the syrup thing it did when she wanted me off balance. "Congratulations. Your father and I are so proud." "Thank you. I do want to say one thing. Brennan and Klein is a very serious firm. Trusts and estates means widows, grieving children, sensitive situations. Are you sure you're emotionally ready for that kind of work? I sat on the floor of my new apartment and listened to the radiator clank. I'm ready, Mom. I'm only asking because I love you. I know. I ended the call. I unpacked the coffee maker. I did not cry. 2 weeks into the job, on a Saturday afternoon, my brother Tyler showed up at the studio. He was 19, a sophomore at Northeastern, and he was carrying a duffel bag because he wanted to crash a night while Mom and Dad hosted a couple's dinner at the house. He sprawled on my futon and complained about his finance professor, and at some point he dropped a manila envelope on the kitchen counter and asked if I had a phone charger. When I went to grab the charger, I noticed the envelope was open. Inside was a stack of paper, bank statements, my mother's checking account. I did not mean to read them. I read them. There were 9 transfers between September and the end of December from an entity I had never heard of, Bennett Living Trust. They added up to $64,000. I stood very still at the counter, the envelope in one hand and a coffee mug in the other. I did not have a grandfather named Bennett on my father's side. My father's family was Bennett. My mother's maiden name was Crowley. The only Bennett in our family was my grandfather Walter, my mother's father, who had taken the Bennett name when he married my grandmother Eileen in 1968 and never given it back. He lived alone in a wooden house in Newton. His checking account I knew because every birthday card he sent me had a handwritten line about how he balanced it twice a week. Walter Bennett had been my mother's father for 52 years. There was no Bennett Living Trust on file in the Massachusetts Trusts Index. I knew because by Monday morning, sitting at my paralegal desk on the 14th floor of the Boylston Street Tower, I checked. The $64,000 was the smallest piece. By Tuesday morning, I had cross-referenced the routing numbers in the statements with 3 of the firm's onboarding databases, the ones we used to vet new clients for sensitive estate work. 2 of the receiving accounts belonged to Diane Crowley Bennett at Eastern Bank. The third belonged to something called DC Caregiver Services at a credit union in Quincy, registered with my mother's Social Security number. Bennett Living Trust did not exist as a Massachusetts legal entity. I ran the search 3 different ways, in 3 different state databases, on 3 different tabs of my work laptop, while the senior associate to my left argued with the senior associate to my right about a probate venue in Worcester. Bennett Living Trust did not exist. It was a memo line. I sat at my paralegal desk on the 14th floor of the Boylston Street Tower, and I felt cold in a way that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. I thought about my grandfather. Walter Bennett had taught 7th grade English at Brookline High School for 35 years. He retired the year I started middle school and immediately built a chess set out of bandsaw scraps for the first family birthday after his retirement. The set was mine. He gave it to me at his kitchen table on my 11th birthday, slid the box across the wood, and said, "You are the most careful one in this family, Camille. Don't ever forget that." It was the only time anyone in my family had ever used that word about me out loud. After my grandmother Eileen died in 2018, Walter had moved out of the Brookline split level he and Eileen had shared for 40 years and into a smaller wooden house in Newton. 3 towns over from where my parents lived. For a while, he had me over on Sunday afternoons. He poured me lemonade in summer and hot apple cider in winter. And we played chess at the wide oak table in his sunroom. And he asked questions about my classes and listened without rearranging my answers. 14 months ago, that stopped. 14 months ago, my mother had called me on a Thursday evening in February and said, "Honey, I need to tell you something. Your grandfather has been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. The doctor said he can't take visitors right now. It is too disorienting for him. He doesn't remember most of us anymore. We have to be careful about overstimulating him." I had cried into a dish towel in my dorm kitchen. I had not seen him since. When I had tried to call him twice in the spring and once last fall, my mother had answered the phone. "He's asleep, Camille. He doesn't recognize voices on the phone anymore. It only confuses him. Please, let me handle this. Please." I had let her handle it. Twice. In the last year, I had driven past his house in Newton on my way home from a Boston College study session. Both times, I had slowed at the corner of Glen Road. Both times, I had seen the porch light on. Both times, I had told myself that if he did not know me anymore, it would be cruel to make him try. It had been cruel to me, too. I had not known that yet. That Tuesday afternoon, in the break room of Brennan and Klein, with the bank statement scanned into a folder on my work laptop, and the words, "Bennett Living Trust," rattling in my head like loose change. I sat at the corner table by the kitchenette and uncapped a pen. I pulled out the small paralegal notebook with the green spiral binding that I had used for every onboarding meeting since I started, 19 days earlier. I wrote one line, "P.O.A. Walter Bennett. Verify." I capped the pen. I closed the notebook. I went to the printer to grab a contract one of the senior associates needed. When I came back, Vivian Brennan was standing at my desk. She was not looking at me. She was looking at the notebook. "Camille." Her voice was very quiet. "Where did you get that name?" I set the contract down. "Walter Bennett is my grandfather." She did not blink. "Walk me to my office." We walked. Other paralegals looked up. She put a hand briefly on the small of my back as we passed them, the way she might guide a client into a deposition. She closed her office door behind me and gestured to a chair. "Tell me, in your own words, what you have learned about this entity in the last 24 hours. I told her about the bank statements, the receiving accounts, in Diane's name, the absence of a registered trust. I did not embellish. I had been a paralegal for 19 days. I knew already that embellishment was the surest way to be ignored. When I stopped, Vivian did not move for a long moment. Then she said, "Camille, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Has your mother contacted this firm in the last 6 weeks?" "I don't know." "Has she ever told you or anyone else that you have a medical or psychiatric condition?" "My whole life. Recently, specifically, diagnoses, medications, names," I thought. "Last October, she told one of her book club friends that I was struggling. She used the word episodes once. I never knew what she meant." Vivian nodded. She turned a folder on her desk so that I could see the edge of it, but not what was inside. 14 months ago, I represented a neighbor of your grandfather's in a probate hearing in Norfolk County. The neighbor reported what she believed to be financial irregularities and undue influence over an elderly resident on her street. The petition we filed to delay your mother's appointment as POA was denied because we could not produce evidence that met the legal threshold. The diagnosing physician, a Dr. Hammond in Quincy, had signed a competency assessment we could not get behind. I felt cold in my fingers and very precise in my head. "My grandfather does not have Alzheimer's," I said. "I cannot prove that yet," Vivian said. "But 3 weeks ago, my HR department received a phone call from a woman claiming to be your clinical psychiatrist, a Dr. Lorraine Pierce, LMHC, with a Massachusetts license number that does not exist. She said you had been recently diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder and had failed to disclose a 2024 DUI on your background check. She sent us a scan of a clinical evaluation on letterhead I cannot find in any database, and a scan of what she said was your driving record." She slid 2 sheets across the desk. The license number on the driver's record was off by 2 digits. The address listed for Dr. Pierce was a UPS store in Hingham. The caller used a prepaid phone purchased at a Walmart in Quincy last month. The credit card on file at that Walmart is your mother's American Express. I did not speak. "I do not yet know how everything connects," Vivian said. "But I know that the same woman is in both stories. I know that you came to work for me in the middle of something that started long before you and your job. And I know that if I move on what I have right now, your mother will see it coming, and she will spend the next year inventing reasons why no one should see her father again." She looked at me with her clear, paying attention eyes. "Tomorrow morning, I'm going to put you on administrative leave with full pay, on the firm's letterhead, in language that will sound like a termination. I am going to do that because I want your mother to feel safe. I want her to think she has won. I want her to call her father and start celebrating. And I want her to do it where I can hear her." I made myself breathe. "What do you want me to do?" I said. "Go home. Tell no one. Do not call your mother. If she calls you, sound shaken. I want her to believe what she is going to read on Monday. I will text you tomorrow evening. We will meet here Friday morning at 9. She paused. "And Camille, I need you to know now that this is a choice. If at any point you want to step back from this, I will close the firm's file, and your job will be exactly the way it was on Monday. I'm not asking you to make a case. I'm asking you to let me make one." I nodded. There was nothing to say. I rode the elevator down at 5, and at the bottom I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes with both hands on the wheel before I drove anywhere. I called my father. He picked up on the 3rd ring. "Camille, everything okay?" "Dad." I held the phone with both hands. "Has Mom been talking about me to anyone lately?" "Your mother talks to a lot of people, sweetheart. About me, about my job." There was a pause. "Your mother just wants what's best for you. You know how she gets." "Has she said anything specific?" He sighed. "She mentioned she was worried that you might be in over your head with this firm thing. She said you've been distant. That's all. Don't read into it." "Dad, Camille," his voice softened. "I am not going to get in the middle of this. You know that." I closed my eyes against the dashboard. "Okay," I said. "Good girl." He hung up. That night, I did not sleep. I lay in my studio with the streetlight from Brighton coming through the half-blind, and I rebuilt 23 years of my mother's voice in my head, like a stranger sorting evidence. At 9 in the evening on Thursday, my phone lit up. The text was from Vivian. Tomorrow, 9 sharp. Just you and me. Friday at 8:50 in the morning, I walked through the doors of Brennan and Klein with the same key card I had used every weekday for 19 days. The receptionist nodded at me, as if nothing had changed. As if my exit paperwork were not at that moment being put in motion by Vivian's assistant on the 14th floor. Vivian was already in the small conference room at the end of the hall. The blinds were down. A laptop was open on the table. Beside it sat a manila folder and a small black speaker. "Sit," she said. I sat. "Yesterday I sent an investigator out to your grandfather's house in Newton. Privately, off the firm's books. He met with your grandfather for 90 minutes. I held the edge of the table. He is fine, Camille. He is more than fine. He is a 78-year-old man who plays bridge twice a week, balances his checkbook on Saturday mornings, and reads the Atlantic cover to cover. He is angry. He has been waiting 14 months for somebody to come and listen to him." She slid the folder toward me and turned the laptop screen. On the screen was a one-page report from the Department of Neurology at Brigham and Women's Hospital, dated March 12th, 3 weeks ago. An independent cognitive evaluation. Mini mental state examination, 29 out of 30. Montreal cognitive assessment, 28 out of 30. Conclusion: cognitively intact. No signs of dementia, no signs of mild cognitive impairment. Below it sat a second document on Quincy Family Medicine letterhead. Dr. Hammond. Diagnosis dated February of last year. Early onset Alzheimer's. A 2-paragraph clinical summary that did not mention which assessment instruments were used, did not mention a referral to neurology, did not mention a baseline. "That is not a competent diagnosis," I said. "That is a story written on letterhead." "That is correct." Vivian let me sit with the documents. "Your grandfather has not seen a neurologist. He has, by his own report, refused all calls from Dr. Hammond's office for over a year. He has been making his own meals, paying his own bills out of a small checking account he never told your mother about, and recording his interactions with her at the kitchen table since October." I lifted my head. "Recording?" She nodded. "He bought a small audio device at a Best Buy in Watertown last October. He placed it in plain view on a shelf above the kitchen counter. 6 months ago, before he started a recording for the first time, he told your mother that his, quote, new doctor, end quote, wanted him to log every caregiving session for clinical reasons. He showed her the device. She said, and I am quoting his transcription, 'Fine, whatever, Dad, if it makes you feel better.' Massachusetts requires 2-party consent. He has it on tape." "He has it on." She pressed play on the speaker. There was a soft kitchen noise. A kettle, maybe. A chair scraping. Then a woman's voice. My mother's voice. Crisper than I remembered, the way it always sounded when she was being practical. "Dad, I need you to sign this. It's the same form as last month. Transfer authorization. I'm going to move $22,000 into the operating account this week." "What for, Diane?" "Your home health aid, the new caregiving schedule. We talked about this." "What home health aid?" "Dad, please, you forget. The aide we hired in September. Just sign." There was a long pause. Then the scrape of a pen. Then Walter Bennett's voice, dry and even and entirely awake. "Diane, tell me her name." "Whose name?" "The aide." "Dad, you're confused. Don't worry about it." "All right, Diane. The recording stopped. Vivian closed the laptop. He has 6 recordings like that. He has handwritten ledgers of every transfer he was asked to authorize going back to last March. The total is $487,000. I closed my eyes. I did not cry. I did not say his name out loud. I let my hands stay flat on the table, and I let myself feel exactly how angry I was in private for the first time in 23 years. When I opened my eyes, Vivian was waiting. "What do you want from me?" I said. "I want you to go home tonight and pack a bag for the weekend. Your grandfather would like you to come for dinner tomorrow at 6. Newton, the same wooden house, you remember." He told my investigator, and I am quoting him exactly. "Tell my granddaughter I have been waiting 14 months for her to come back. Tell her I knew she would." I nodded. I did not trust my voice yet. "He has a plan, Camille. He has been holding it for 6 weeks. He needed a lawyer he could trust before he moved. He needed a granddaughter who works in trusts and estates before he was sure he had one." She put a hand briefly on mine. "Your grandfather is the most patient man I've ever met." The wooden house in Newton looked exactly the way I remembered it. White clapboard, dark green shutters, a sagging maple tree in the front yard that my grandmother had planted the year before she died. The porch light was on. A pumpkin from October was still on the top step. The driveway was clean, as my grandfather opened the door before I knocked. He was thinner. He was holding a wooden cane he did not need. He was looking at me with my grandmother's eyes, gray and quiet and very alive. "You came," he said. He set the cane against the wall and pulled me into a hug that did not feel like a man with dementia. It felt like a man who had been preparing to hold me for 14 months. I cried for the first time in 2 days. I cried into his cardigan while he kept a hand on the back of my head and did not say a word. When I stepped back, he handed me a folded handkerchief from his shirt pocket, the way he had handed me cider in this same hallway when I was 12. "I made meatloaf," he said. "I am not too proud to admit it is from the cookbook your grandmother left. Come." He walked me to the kitchen. The recorder was sitting on the second shelf above the counter, exactly where he had said it would be. A small black box with a single green light. Beside it on the counter was a typed sheet of paper. The caregiving services agreement my mother had drafted, signed in her own hand and his. Clause 7, highlighted with a yellow marker. "All in-home interactions may be recorded for caregiver review and clinical documentation." She wrote that herself, he said. She wrote it to protect herself. She did not read it back when I asked her to. He went to the drawer beside the stove. He came back with a small leather notebook and laid it open on the table. 18 pages. Each page covered a month. Each page had 4 to 6 entries, each entry written in his careful 7th grade English teacher cursive. A date, a dollar amount, a 2-word description: your mother, your mother, your mother. The last entry was January 22nd. "That is the day I stopped signing," he said. "She has not been back since." I touched the page. $487,000, Grandpa. 487,012, to be exact. He sat down across from me. "I taught 7th grade English for 35 years. The pension is generous. Your grandmother and I were careful." There was supposed to be a trust for you when you turned 25. I drafted it in April of last year, the morning after the probate hearing went the way it went. I never got to file it. He slid a manila envelope across the table. I opened it. Inside was a one-page draft of an irrevocable trust dated April 1st, 2025. Beneficiary, Camille Bennett. Trustee, Walter Bennett. Funding, $487,000 from accounts that, by the time he tried to file it, had already been moved. I am too old to be angry the way she is angry, Walter said. I have been waiting because I did not want her to do anything worse to you. I did not know what she would do if I moved first. I did not want her to invent some sickness for you the way she invented one for me. He looked at me steadily. And then you took a job with a woman who tried to stop her last year, and I knew. I put the draft down. She has been calling Vivian's firm for the last 6 weeks, Grandpa. She made up a psychiatrist for me. She told them I have a DUI. She has been trying to get me fired. He did not look surprised. He looked for one instant very tired. I am sorry, sweetheart, he said. I am sorry I waited as long as I did. Don't. Yes. He took my hand across the kitchen table. The light from the under cabinet bulbs caught the rim of the recorder. Vivian and I have a plan, he said. Your mother has booked a dinner. Thursday at 7. The Brookline Grange. Cocktails at the bar, family at the round table by the window. She thinks she is going to announce your termination to your aunt and uncle, and your father and your brother. She has been telling Brenda for a week. She has been rehearsing. I knew exactly which round table he meant. You are going to go to that dinner, he said. You are going to sit through whatever she says. You are not going to defend yourself. You are not going to scream. You are not going to leave. When the moment comes, you are going to put your phone on the table, and then Vivian and I are going to walk in. I looked at him for a long moment. Okay, Grandpa, he smiled at me. The same smile that, in 2013, had handed me a chess set across this same table. You were always the most careful one in this family, Camille. I told her so. She did not listen. She is going to listen on Thursday. If you are still with me, I want to ask you something. Pause the video right now and tell me in the comments, yes or no. Do you think Diane should have to face this in front of the whole family? Or do you think Camille should give her one private chance first? I want to know what you would do. I will read every answer. Subscribe if you have not yet. Now let me take you to Thursday. Tyler came over on Sunday afternoon. He let himself into the building lobby because I had given him the code, and he climbed the 4 flights with a bag of bagels and a thermos of coffee, the way he had every Sunday since I moved in. He still thought I had been fired. He thought we were going to eat carbs and watch bad reality television. He set the bag on the counter and pulled off his coat, and noticed, for the first time, that I was sitting on the futon with 3 folders in my lap and a half-empty glass of water on the floor. You okay? Sit down, Tyler. He sat. He looked at the folders. He looked at me. He laughed once, nervously. What is this, an intervention? It's a conversation. I handed him the manila envelope from the kitchen counter, the one he had left behind 10 weeks ago. The one with the bank statements he had never noticed was open. I told him to look at it. He did not look at me while he read. He flipped through the first page, then the second, then the third. I watched his face do the same small adjustments mine had done. He stopped at the 6th page. He set the stack on the coffee table. "Mom told me this was for Grandpa's care," he said. 24-hour aid, memory care medication, the whole thing. She showed me a budget last summer. She showed me bills. Were the bills addressed to anyone? He frowned. I didn't really look. "Tyler, the aid does not exist. The memory care medication does not exist. Grandpa Walter does not have Alzheimer's. He never did." He laughed again, the same nervous laugh, smaller this time. "Camille, come on." I opened my laptop. I pulled up the short video Walter's investigator had recorded on Friday morning, after he agreed to participate. A 30-second clip of my grandfather in his kitchen, holding the front page of that day's Boston Globe and saying his name, the date, his social security number, and the breakfast he had just eaten. I turned the laptop toward Tyler. He watched it twice. He did not say anything for a long time. I went to the kitchen and poured a second glass of water and set it on the table in front of him and sat down again. "How much money has she put in your account this year, Tyler?" He swallowed. "Spring tuition, $18,000. Spending account, $4 every month. A MacBook in January, $2,800. She said it was from the family fund." "There is no family fund, Cam. There is Grandpa's retirement account. There is his pension. There was supposed to be a trust for me when I turned 25. There is no family fund. There never was." His hand started to shake, not dramatically, the way mine had shaken on Wednesday night in the parking garage. The careful, embarrassed shake of someone trying not to be seen. "I have been spending Grandpa's money," he said. "You did not know." I should have known. I should have asked. I never asked. "Tyler, listen to me." He lifted his head. "You did not know because she made very sure you did not know. She has been doing this since I was 12 years old. To different people. For different reasons. You and I were raised in different houses by the same woman. That is the entire trick. That is how she did this. The fact that you believed her is not your shame." He pressed the heel of his hand into one eye, then the other. "How long have you known?" 6 days. 6 days, Cam. I am telling you now because I need you to come to dinner on Thursday." He looked up. "What dinner?" "Mom has booked the Brookline Grange. Cocktails at 6:30. Family table at 7. She is planning to announce that I was fired. She has been telling Aunt Brenda all week. The whole family will be there. She does not know. She does not know any of it." He drew a long breath. He stared at the manila envelope on the coffee table as if it were a wild animal and he were waiting for it to move. "I'm coming," he said. "I'm coming. I want to be there." He looked at me with my mother's eyes and not my mother's expression, and I saw for the first time in 19 years my brother as a separate person. "Cam, what do you need me to do?" "Sit at the table, eat your meal, do not warn her. Do not preempt her. Whatever she says about me, let her say it. When Grandpa walks in, just be on his side of the room." Done. He sat with the envelope on his knees, and we did not eat the bagels. When he left, 3 hours later, he hugged me at the door. A long, awkward hug from a brother who had never hugged me without performing it for our mother. And then he walked down the hall to the stairs, and I closed the door and slid the deadbolt and stood with my forehead against the wood for a long minute. I did not cry that night either. I had 4 days to be steady. The 4 days between Sunday afternoon and Thursday at 6 were the longest week of my life. I did not go to the office. I did not call my mother. I did not let her know I had been to see Walter. I let her continue to believe that my termination letter, which I had received by certified mail on Monday morning, signed by Vivian Brennan herself, formal and chilly and missing exactly the kind of detail that would let me sue, had broken me. She called twice on Monday. I did not pick up. She called 4 times on Tuesday. I let her go to voicemail. She left the 3rd message in her honey voice. Camille, I'm only checking on you. I love you. We need to talk. There is a dinner on Thursday. Brenda and Carl are coming in from Sudbury. Your father has booked the round table at the Brookline Grange. Please be there at 7. Please be on time. Wear something appropriate. We will figure this out together. I texted back 2 words. I will be there. Vivian called me on Wednesday morning from her office line. She walked me through the evidence she would carry into the restaurant on Thursday, the way a surgeon walks a resident through an instrument tray. The court order tracing the 4 prepaid phone calls from a single SIM card to my mother's American Express. The 4 scanned versions of Dr. Lorraine Pierce's psychiatric evaluation, each one almost identical, each one referencing a different DSM code in a way no real clinician would. The petition forms Dr. Hammond had filed in March of last year, alongside the independent Brigham and Women's evaluation contradicting them, 18 pages of Walter's handwritten ledger, 6 audio recordings transcribed verbatim, a draft revocation of the power of attorney ready to be filed in Norfolk probate at 8 on Friday morning, a civil complaint for elder financial exploitation under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 19A, Section 15, a criminal referral separately prepared to be hand-delivered to the Norfolk District Attorney before noon on Friday. Camille, Vivian's voice was very quiet on the phone. I want you to know that this is happening with or without Thursday night. The petition will be filed Friday morning either way. Thursday is a courtesy I am offering your grandfather. It is not a courtesy I am offering your mother. I understand. If you change your mind at any point between now and 7 o'clock Thursday, I will pull every card from this hand. Just say the word. I won't change my mind. Good. On Wednesday night, I sat at my kitchen counter with a yellow legal pad, and I wrote a letter to my 12-year-old self. It was 3 sentences. It said, "You were not the problem." She was. You will live to find out. I tore the page off, folded it twice, and put it in my pocket. At 5:50 on Thursday morning, my father called. I did not expect him to call. I almost did not answer. Camille. His voice was thinner than I had ever heard it. I don't know what is happening tonight. Your mother has been in a strange mood all week. She has been on the phone in the basement at 1 in the morning. She is herself, just more of it. I did not say anything. I don't know what is going to happen at the restaurant, he said. I just want you to know, if you need a place after tonight, you can come stay with me. I don't know where I'm going to be after tonight either, but whatever happens, you have a place. It was the longest sentence he had ever spoken to me. Thank you, Dad. I am sorry I have been useless your whole life. Don't, Dad. I have, Camille. Be at the restaurant tonight, I said. Just be there. I will. He hung up. At 6:10 on Thursday evening, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror in a gray wool blazer and a black shell, and the smallest pair of pearl earrings my grandmother had ever worn. I opened the voice memo app on my phone and slid it into the inner pocket of the blazer. I did not press record. I just made sure I knew where the button was. I picked up my keys. I drove to Brookline. The Brookline Grange sits at the corner of Beacon and Harvard, in the old brick storefront that used to be a bookstore when I was a child. The dining room is paneled in dark wood, hurricane lamps on each table, a long bar along the south wall. The kind of restaurant my mother loved, because every conversation could be heard at the next table over, and she had been raising her voice in restaurants my whole life. I arrived at 6:55. The hostess looked at me and said, "Bennett party, in the back, the round table by the window." I followed her. 7 of them were already there. My mother in a navy dress with 3 buttons open at the throat, lipstick the color of fresh blood, hair pulled tight. Aunt Brenda in cream, with a pearl pin at her collar. Uncle Carl in a navy blazer that did not quite close at the bottom button. 2 of my mother's cousins, Patricia and Ellen, both flown in from Sudbury and Worcester. My father was in a gray suit, looking like he had not slept. My brother Tyler in a black sweater with his hands flat under the table. There were 8 place settings. One was mine, between Tyler and my father. The chair was already pulled out. Camille! My mother stood up and put her hands on my shoulders and kissed me on the cheek. A public kiss performed for the room. Sweetheart, you look so tired. Sit. We are having the Friday cod tonight, just like always. I sat. Tyler did not look at me. He did not look at her either. He looked at his bread plate. The waiter took our orders. The waiter brought wine. The waiter brought rolls. My mother made small talk about Brenda's garden, about Ellen's new dog, about the weather. She did not look at me. She did not look at my father. She tapped one fingernail against the stem of her wine glass and waited. When the entrees came down, she set her fork on the edge of her plate. I want to say something. She straightened the way a woman with a microphone straightens. Brenda made a small, encouraging noise. Carl set down his wine. It is not easy to be a mother of an adult child who is struggling. We do everything we can. We educate them, we support them, we pray for them. And sometimes, despite our best efforts, they still find a way to disappoint us. She turned her head very slowly toward me. Camille was let go from her first real job at Brennan and Klein last Monday. Without notice, without a reference, without, she added, smiling at Brenda, even a paycheck for the last 2 weeks. That last part was not true. The paycheck had arrived by direct deposit on Tuesday. But that was not the point. The point was Brenda's small intake of breath. The point was Carl's slow shake of the head. The point was Patricia putting a hand to her chest. I had hoped to handle this privately, but Camille has been ignoring my calls all week, and I thought it was important for the family to hear this from me before any rumors start going around. Camille has always had, well, I don't want to use the word episodes, but she has had difficulties. We all knew this day was probably coming. I just wanted to spare her the embarrassment of pretending otherwise. She looked at me directly. You are not responsible enough to hold a real job, Camille. I love you, but it is time to come home. Your grandfather needs full-time care. We have a room ready for you. We can take this off your shoulders. You don't have to keep pretending. She picked up her fork again. The cod steamed on its tines. I did not argue. I did not cry. I did not look at my father, who was staring at his napkin. I did not look at Tyler, who was breathing through his nose. I set my phone face down on the linen next to the bread plate. I let the candle flame reflect off the case. The phone buzzed once. My mother smiled. Aren't you going to defend yourself? I waited. The phone buzzed a second time. I picked it up. The screen lit. The name on the screen was Vivian Brennan. Yes, I said into the phone. We're here. Come in. I set the phone back down. My mother's fork stopped mid-bite. She held it in the air between the plate and her mouth, the cod still steaming. Who was that? She said. My boss. Camille! Her voice tightened. You do not have a boss anymore. The bell above the front door rang. I heard the hostess say very politely, Right this way. Vivian Brennan walked in first. Navy suit. Hair pinned back. The same expression she wore in front of a judge. She had a leather portfolio under one arm and the elbow of another person in her other hand. Behind her, walking carefully but standing straight with one hand on a wooden cane that he did not need, came my grandfather, Walter Bennett. Aunt Brenda's wine glass tipped, made a quarter turn and stopped on its base. Patricia put a hand over her mouth. Uncle Carl said, What in God's name? My mother's hand began to shake, slowly. She set her fork down on her plate. The fork made a sound. Dad, she said. Her voice cracked on the word. Dad, what are you doing here? You shouldn't. You can't. You have Alzheimer's. Somebody help, please. He's not supposed to be out of the house. Walter Bennett stopped at the head of the round table. He looked at his daughter for a long time. He did not raise his voice. He did not raise his eyebrows. He looked at her the way a 7th grade English teacher looks at a student who has been caught lying about a book report. Diane, he said, today is April 2nd, 2026. I had 2 eggs for breakfast at 6:30 this morning. Your name is Diane Crowley Bennett. You were born on August 19th, 1973. We are sitting in the Brookline Grange on the corner of Beacon and Harvard. I know exactly where I am. He set the cane against the back of an empty chair, and I know exactly what you have done. For the next 4 minutes, nobody at our table breathed in a way I could hear. My mother went very pale, and then very red, and then very pale again. Her napkin twisted into a knot on her lap. She looked at my father. First time in 20 years of restaurant dinners she had ever turned to him for help. And my father did not look back at her. He's medicated. Her voice was higher than I'd ever heard it. He's having an episode. He's not himself. Brenda, please, can someone help us get him home? This is so embarrassing for the family. He doesn't even know where he is. Vivian Brennan stepped forward. She placed the leather portfolio on the table in the empty space between my mother's plate and the candle. She opened it. She removed 3 documents and laid them out in a neat row, the way a real estate agent lays out brochures. This she said, tapping the first page, is a competency assessment performed by Dr. Hammond of Quincy Family Medicine, dated February 11th of last year. It is the basis for Diane Crowley Bennett's appointment as financial power of attorney for Walter Bennett on March 3rd of last year. It does not reference a single standardized assessment instrument. It does not include a baseline. It does not reference a neurology consultation. By Massachusetts standards, it is not a clinical diagnosis, it is a paragraph. She tapped the second page. This is an independent cognitive evaluation performed by the Department of Neurology at Brigham and Women's Hospital, dated March 12th of this year. Mini Mental, 29 of 30. Montreal Cognitive Assessment, 28 of 30. Conclusion: cognitively intact. No signs of dementia, no signs of mild cognitive impairment, no clinical indication of decline. She tapped the third page, and this is a sworn affidavit by Walter Bennett, executed on Tuesday morning at my office, in which he affirms under penalty of perjury that he has never been examined by Dr. Hammond in person, that he has refused all calls from her office for the last 14 months, and that the signature appearing on the February 11th competency form is not his. She paused. Dr. Hammond's medical license will be subject to a Massachusetts Board of Registration in Medicine review beginning at 9 on Monday morning. My mother said, "He gave me that money. He wanted to. He told me." Vivian held up one finger. She removed the small black speaker from the portfolio and set it on the table. These are 6 audio recordings of conversations between Walter Bennett and Diane Crowley Bennett, made between October 4th of last year and January 22nd of this year. Massachusetts requires 2-party consent. The signed caregiving services agreement on which 2-party consent is established was drafted by Diane Crowley Bennett herself and executed in Walter Bennett's kitchen on August 19th, 2 days after her appointment as power of attorney. Clause 7 explicitly authorizes recording for clinical documentation. I would like the room to hear 2 of them. She pressed play. My mother's own voice came out of the speaker. Dad, I need you to sign this. It's the same form as last month. Transfer authorization. I'm going to move $22,000 into the operating account this week. What for, Diane? Your home health aid. The new caregiving schedule. We talked about this. What home health aid? Dad, please, you forget. The aide we hired in September. Just sign. A long pause. A scrape. The voice of Walter Bennett. Very dry. Diane, tell me her name. Whose name? The aide. Dad, you're confused. Don't worry about it. All right, Diane. Patricia made a small noise that was not quite a word. Brenda was staring at her sister with her mouth slightly open. Carl was staring at the speaker. This is the second recording, Vivian said. December 10th of last year. She pressed play again. Dad, $40,000 this month. I have the paperwork ready. Just sign at the bottom. Don't read it. You'll get tired. That is your trust account at Eastern Bank, Diane. Dad, no, that's the family fund. You don't remember. That's what we set up in September. Diane, I did not set anything up in September. We had this conversation in September. You sat in this kitchen. I told you no. Dad, please, just sign. The recording stopped. Vivian closed the speaker. Diane Crowley Bennett transferred a total of $487,012 from Walter Bennett's retirement accounts and savings between May of last year and the 22nd of January of this year, she said. Those funds were moved through 3 pass-through accounts and consolidated in a personal checking account at Eastern Bank in her name with no power of attorney trustee designation. As of 9 on Friday morning, that is tomorrow morning, those accounts will be frozen by court order. Walter Bennett has petitioned the Norfolk Probate Court for emergency revocation of power of attorney. A civil complaint for elder financial exploitation under Massachusetts General Laws 19A 15 will be filed before noon. A criminal referral will be hand-delivered to the Norfolk District Attorney before close of business. Walter Bennett did not raise his voice. "Diane," he said, "the money is going back. The diagnosis is going to be retracted. Dr. Hammond will lose her license. You are going to face a felony charge of larceny over $250,000, and you are going to face a separate felony charge of financial exploitation of an elder. I am telling you this because I want you to hear it from me first, in this room, in front of your husband and your sister, and the family you brought here tonight to watch you humiliate my granddaughter." He paused. "I taught 7th grade for 35 years. Diane, I've watched a lot of children try to lie their way out of consequences. I'm very tired of the performance." My mother slammed her hand flat on the table. The water glasses jumped. The cod steamed. "He wanted to give me that money," she said. "I have been caring for him since Mother died. I have been—" "Diane," my father's voice, quiet, final, the voice of a man who had been silent for 23 years and had decided to use it once. She stopped. He set down his napkin. He turned his chair slightly so that he was facing her directly across the candle. "You told me he was sick. You told me. I signed the papers you brought home. I gave you our daughter, Diane. I let you say what you said. I let you say it for 23 years. I told myself you were just nervous. I told myself you loved her. I told myself it would pass. It did not pass. You were stealing from your father, and you were dismantling our child. And I sat at this table, and I cut my fish." Tyler stood up. He walked around the back of 2 chairs, and he stopped at Walter's elbow, and he put both arms around our grandfather without saying anything at all. Walter patted the back of his head. "It is not yours to be sorry for, sweetheart. It was never yours. If you have ever sat at a table like this, if you have ever loved a parent who used you as an audience while she dismantled you for a stage, I see you. Boundaries are not revenge. Sometimes a boundary just sounds like a quiet door. Sometimes it sounds like your father's voice the first time he chooses you out loud. If this has stayed with you, tell me in the comments. I read every one of them. Now let me finish the story. 3 weeks after that dinner, the Norfolk Probate Court revoked my mother's power of attorney. Walter Bennett was restored as the sole administrator of his own accounts. Dr. Hammond surrendered her medical license, rather than face a hearing. A grand jury in Norfolk County returned an indictment on 2 felony counts. Bail was set at $75,000. My mother is awaiting trial in a small rental in Quincy, in a unit she paid first and last on with the only money the court did not freeze, which was the joint checking account she had with my father. My father has filed for divorce. He is staying at Walter's house, in the upstairs bedroom my grandmother used to use as a sewing room. Tyler moved out of the family house on the Saturday after the dinner. He emptied his savings account and put down first and last on a triple-decker in Brighton, 10 blocks from my apartment. He took a spring semester loan. He is working part-time at the campus bookstore. He repaid Walter every dollar he had spent that he could trace, $8,400, in a single check written in his own hand. Walter cashed it and redeposited it in an account he opened for Tyler's senior year tuition. Vivian rehired me the Monday after the dinner. She walked me past the receptionist and back to my desk, and she said, in front of the whole floor, "Camille Bennett has been on administrative leave for the past 2 weeks. She is now reinstated, with back pay through last Friday, in the position she held when she walked out of here. Brennan and Klein is also prepared to sponsor her JD at Suffolk Law, starting in the fall, on the firm's dollar." She set down the offer letter on my desk. Then she walked back to her office and closed the door. I cried at my desk for 40 seconds before I picked up my first file of the day. Aunt Brenda called me on the second Sunday after the dinner. She did not apologize. She asked, in a very small voice, whether I had known the whole time. I told her I had known for 10 days. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I want you to know that I believed her my whole life, Camille. I'm sorry I made that easy for her." I told her that nobody who knew Diane had ever found it easy. I meant it. We have lunch every 2 months now, at a diner in Sudbury, halfway between her house and Newton. She is the only one of my mother's people who has called me in 11 weeks. On Saturday afternoons now, I drive out to Newton. My grandfather makes coffee. He sets up the chess set he built me when I was 11. We play one game, slowly, while the afternoon light moves across the kitchen table. He still uses the cane he does not need. He still asks me about my classes. He still calls me the most careful one in the family. I did not scream that night at the Brookline Grange. I did not have to. The truth did the screaming for me.